I remember, yes, way back. In fact, some of the problems that we were having, the reason there had to be a movement, the fact that there were many things that African Americans were not allowed to do. At one time, we were called blacks, and of course, other things as well. But for instance, we were not allowed to ride on the bus. They had a, except we rode behind something that was called a Jim Crow board. And on one side it said white, on the other side it said colored. And we only could sit behind that board that said colored. If we sat above it, in front of it, we could be arrested. And many times there was more blacks riding the bus than whites. So of course the black side was crowded, and sometimes the blacks would actually have to be standing all the way up to the front, but they could not sit in the seat if it were vacant, if it was in front of the sign that said white. Of course, that didn't feel too good when we had to go to work and school, et cetera, and we had to stand. Also, there were fountains, water fountains that said colored and white, and we could not drink out of the fountain that said white. It didn't matter how hot it was or how cold it was, it didn't matter. If you drank out of the white fountain, you were subject to be reprimanded or possibly arrested. But we realized that wasn't right. But then it just went on from there. Restrooms, colored and white. And in the stores downtown Birmingham, about the only jobs that a black person could hold was a cleaning lady or cleaning man, sweeping and this kind of thing, and possibly running the elevator, and that was it. And yet, blacks were spending many, many thousands of dollars. And I remember one particular season, it was coming up toward Easter, and normally right around Easter, blacks would like to dress their children to look very pretty at Easter, on Easter Sunday. And the movement, the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights, told us we had mass meetings on Monday nights, and we were instructed not to shop for Easter. We were going to boycott the stores downtown Birmingham, and because we didn't have any black clerks and any reputable jobs, etc., for our people, and yet we were spending thousands and thousands of dollars. So this was not right. Basically, taxation without representation. And so we started a boycott. And I'm talking, it was a very big boycott. And Reverend David Abernathy said one night, we're going to hit them where it hurts the worst. We're going to hit them in the pocketbook. And it did. And there were pickets in front of the stores, and we were to go back to our churches and announce it, that no shopping, don't buy new clothes for Easter. We were going to wear old clothes for Easter. And we did that. That was hardly done before that. Easter Sunday came, blacks were not buying, did not buy, we wore old clothes. And that Sunday afternoon, we had a mass meeting downtown Birmingham. And the leaders, Dr. King, Reverend Shuttlesworth, Reverend Abernathy, all of the leaders basically were at that meeting. And when I walked in the church and I saw that, I was so impressed. They were not even in suits. They had on overalls. So everybody was on one accord. And that was one of the things that I noticed most, that there was unity. We were in unity. And that's what we believe in. In unity, there is strength. This time, the powers that be, so to speak, were ready to talk and to find out what do we have to do. So then they were able to tell them what we wanted, and we were able to get some black clerks, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm glad that the Jim Crow boards were removed, so a lot of things transpired. But that was not the only thing. I think the biggest thing was the boycott, not just the boycott, but the going to jail. And that was thousands, literally thousands, who went to jail, and they hardly could find a place to put us. But it meant something, and it spoke volumes, and we had unity, and things changed. I sang with the choir, and I've forgotten how many nights. I think it was about 60 nights, 40 to 60 nights we sang each night. And it was said that we sang the people out of their seats and into the streets. They were songs that inspired people to do something. We have a song entitled I've Got a Job, and it tells that we've got a job to do, but everybody else does too. It's not just a one-man show. It's everybody. So, and I did go to jail. I had never been in jail. I had heard so much about it, didn't want to go, didn't want to have to go. But I felt like this was important. And I thought one day I would get married and have children. And I wanted them to be able to enjoy some of the things that I couldn't enjoy. I couldn't go to the parks. And Disney World was there after a while, but there were places we were not allowed to go only because of the color of our skin. So we realized that wasn't right. But I was taught by my parents to love. It didn't matter what the color of the skin was, we were all people, and we had to love. So I knew that. So if this was the only way that there could bring about a change, then I was willing to do it. The only thing that I can think of that gave me courage was the Lord. I believed in prayer. My father was a minister, and my mother was a praying woman. So we were taught about the Lord when we were children. And I realized that I could do anything according to the word. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. So even though it was hard, it was hard for me, a young person, I realized I could, and if it were important enough, and I thought it was. So I did. I think you need to find something that you're willing to fight for. If you feel like it's important enough to fight for, then do it. And I believe that if it's important enough, we'll try to do it, and we'll do whatever we have to do to get the job done. I'd like to see the young people find out more about the history, more about the struggles that we had, because they're coming now and they don't see what we saw. They don't experience what we experienced. And I'd like for them to see some of the things that we encountered so that they would have a better life and realize that if they don't do something themselves, their children won't have a good life. They're going to indeed go right back. And I want them to know they need to get educated, but they need to get a Bible and read it and do what the Word says and trust God for it and want to do right, have some integrity and some character and know what's right and what's wrong and stand for it. I'd like to see our young people get busy. I'd like to see them put down some of these electronics that they have, stop putting so much time into that, and stop letting their cell phones be a part of their bodies, it seems, and get away from it. And I see in little children, even the smaller children, are not even getting outside playing like we used to. I'd like to see them do more of that and think on their own and not just act like right now. And I want this right now. Wait and see what the outcome can be. If I take this action, we were taught that for every action, there is a reaction. And I'd like for them to think about the end of the action that they're taking and just use a little more common sense. And my mother used to call it mother wit. How could they get organized? First, have a principle for themselves. Know what they'd like. And if it's important enough to them, talk to somebody else. And sooner or later, I believe a leader will come forth if they talk from one to the other and share ideas. And then they can choose whom they think would make a good leader based on the ideas that the individuals have. I'd like to do something from the hymnal, if I may. And I believe in this. I don't know about tomorrow. I just live from day to day. I don't borrow from its sunshine, for its skies may turn to gray. I don't worry over the future, for I know what Jesus said. And today I'll walk beside him for he knows what lies ahead. Many things about tomorrow I don't seem to understand, but I know who holds tomorrow, and I know who holds my hand. I agree that black lives do matter, but not only do black lives matter, all lives matter. I don't feel like it should take a movement. The one movement that it will take is as a heart change. We need a heart change. If people would have a heart change, and what am I saying when I say a heart change? Give their hearts to the Lord. We wouldn't need to say Black Lives Matter. We wouldn't have to say White Lives Matter, or Native American Lives Matter. We wouldn't have to say that, because we would look at each person as individuals. Because the problem is, if we start segregating and discriminating against any race or creed or person, then it will eventually come to us. Sooner or later, we're going to have to face it ourselves. So I think that we ought to just look at people as being people and all belonging to the Lord. Well, I continue to work with the movement and continue to, we still had meetings, and the choir still does sing. And we encourage people, and we go around to schools and talk to the children and try to educate them about some of the things that have happened, and try to encourage the young people to stay in school, listen to their parents, listen to their teachers, and have a mind of their own to try to do what is right. And no matter what others are doing, you be responsible for number one. Be responsible for yourself. That's basically all we can do. We can't change others, but we can change ourselves with the help of the Lord.